here today with Andy Seagrave. He's an amazing musician that is in New York City. Thank you for being here today, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So Andy actually just had an album come out and it's called The Jungle and it was released on January 2nd. And can you tell us a little bit about this album, how you came up with the name The Jungle, your thought process?
Yeah. Actually, the name of The Jungle came from one of the songs, from the title track of the album. But I was thinking back to when, like the night before or a couple nights before I moved to New York from Texas, a friend was like, "Are you ready for the concrete jungle? Are you ready for this?"
Yeah.
You know? And I think I was telling someone, we kind of rolled our eyes like, "Oh, like I'm sure it's fine, like it's a regular." But anyways, so I was thinking back and I think when I ended up writing the song, The Jungle, I think that was kind of in my head. And I was kind of like, I was excited about calling the album that. I was thinking of other tracks like My Name is Human or Bad Bad Man or something like that. And I stuck with Jungle because I love movies about New York. I love New York, you know? And so I thought, oh, it's kind of cool to have this album almost be a tribute to like this crazy city.
Yeah, an ode to the concrete jungle that you're paving this,
That can
musical
like
journey.
make or break you, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So you're out of Texas. Where in Texas did you come from, Andy?
Yeah, I grew up in South Texas, in Corpus Christi.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have some
So
family out in Corpus Christi, actually.
you do?
Yeah, my cousins live out there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like, we got the beach there and we got, that's about it. But I
What
feel
was
like,
that like moving from, beach in Texas to concrete jungle, New York City?
yeah. Well, at first I was looking for like water and sky for a little while. And I remember walking all the way to like the East River, um, during like my spare time to try to get that back, to
Yeah.
kind of get back to like, oh, a big Texas guy or the water or the outdoors or whatever. So yeah, it was an adjustment and it was kind of like um, trying to relive that or I don't know, trying to find some kind of like familiar home feeling
Right.
next
Right.
to
So
the East River.
have you found that feeling playing inside of any of, the bars? Because I've found that, I live now I grew up outside of New York City in New Jersey, but now I live in small town Ohio. But I found
Oh,
that
cool.
even walking up, up and down Court Street, that's just in my little town, you can walk into some of these little hole in the wall bars and you kind of feel like you're back in like, you
Midwest or
know,
the South or whatever.
yeah. So do you find that in any of the places that you played in the city that like it has that community feel and you're like, okay, I am home?
Well, there's absolutely, now New York feels like home, you know?
Yeah.
I'm definitely not trying to like feel like I'm in Texas or anything anymore. Um, so New York, I live in like Manhattan, close to Central Park and like by Harlem, kind of Upper West Side Harlem. And I love where I am, so it really feels like home now. Um,
Oh, good.
But yeah, but it's weird. Brooklyn is like people are moving from wherever and trying to turn Brooklyn into like the Midwest or the South or whatever. And it's kind of weird, but um, it's kind of cool too. It's like, what? Brooklyn has breakfast tacos, like, or
Ooh.
Brooklyn has barbecue. Like, oh,
They're
that's,
getting like the Austin like food truck vibe going
yeah.
on.
So one place that I love to go is Pig Beach in Brooklyn. It's like great barbecue and they have a big outdoor space. So that's really cool. But as far as music goes, I kind of more recently, as I started playing out with my band, I've found that there's kind of like a country blues Americana scene in New York, which
Which
is
is
cool. It's
very
not
cool to
unexpected.
yeah, very cool for you to be able to tap into because maybe it's not, you don't necessarily know that these places even exist, but you are in New York City where like there's everything, right? You've just got to
Yeah.
find it. And
Yeah.
it's, it's really cool that you're, tapping into that and finding these places. So I
Yeah.
know that you've played at the Apollo Theater before, which is amazing,
Amateur,
right?
yeah. Yeah, I did
That's
I did amateur night, and it was kind of something to do. It's when I was kind of realizing the blues rock genre, which I've always loved, and I kind of
uh-huh.
naturally play that when I pick up the guitar. But anyways, around that time, I was realizing, oh, this is kind of my niche,
Mhm.
the blues thing. And even if it's not popular, artists like Gary Clark Jr. and stuff that popped up really inspired me. And like, okay, he's doing what he loved. I love this too, so I should, I can kind of play like him, so I should try to do it too. But
Absolutely.
anyways, um, so yeah, the amateur night at the Apollo, it was just kind of a thing to do. I was like, let me do it. I have this blues tune that I cover. It's been doing well at like open mics and friends and family, and like, oh, so let me do it. Let me do it at the amateur night. So I went and auditioned, and I waited in line for like all day, probably like 8 or 9 in the morning, and then I was done at like 7 at night.
Oh, wow.
Waiting in line, and they even tried to get rid of some of the crowd. They were like, guys, we have all we can take. You guys can go. And a bunch of people left. And I was like, no, I'm not going to leave because that's weird. So anyways, through all that, stuck around, auditioned. And then they called me a few months later and said I was going to be performing at the amateur night. And it was really cool. It's terrifying because it's a huge crowd.
Right.
You don't want to get booed. I'm playing like some like old music that usually older people play. And but I had some compliments. Like one of the guys backstage was like, all right, man, bringing the blues back to the Apollo. And I got third place that night, which was
That's
it
incredible.
was unexpected. Yeah. And then the next time I went back, it didn't, it just didn't come together. Like there was like a pedal malfunction with one of my guitar pedals on stage as I was there. So I was like in front of trying to hook it up with the guy who didn't know. He was like, I hooked it up. I don't know. And so anyways, there were other things too. Like the MC was like cracking jokes at me, like this, look at this guy. And I was like, dude, the crowd is about to vote for me. And like, but he needed to get a laugh. So he got a laugh. And so that night I didn't get, like, I didn't place at all. So that was the end of it. But it was cool, man. The people from the crowd were passing by and being like, you were my favorite. And one of my friends was like, all these young people like you. There's all these kids who are like, that was cool.
Yeah.
So it's so weird, so unexpected. It's like, you should really step out and try something. And
Absolutely. And I think that the younger generation of listeners coming up right now, they're kind of like tapping into that more, like, they're not wanting to necessarily listen to the pop music that's on the radio. They're trying to dig deeper into other genres like what you're bringing. So that's really cool, that because not a lot of people are playing the stuff that you're doing right now. So that's nice to bring that. Who would you say are your like musical like influences growing up, like before you even picked up a guitar and you heard somebody play? Who would you say was your like wow person?
Yeah, the first person was Michael Jackson. Maybe like New Kids on the Block and Vanilla Ice before that, but really, but Michael Jackson, I would like lay in bed and listen to his albums at night. And I think a lot of musicians have that story, which I didn't realize, that a lot of musicians as kid would like just listen to music at night or in bed, and that's what they did for fun. So anyways, MJ was like all his records I was listening to in bed before I could play the guitar. And then my parents always had like Beatles and Carole King and James Taylor, and some eventually like Bob Marley made it into the mix. And we had one of those like 5-disc changers, so it was just like different albums in the house. So it was kind of poppy stuff like that, but also like soulful, chill kind of stuff.
Fun.
And then a lot of those records have guitar on them, so that those jumped out at me. If like George Harrison took a solo, I'd be like, oh, what was that?
How old were you when you started playing guitar?
I was 12.
Wow, that's really cool.
I was 12, yeah. My neighbor had a guitar, and then at the same time, my sister, my oldest sister, was in high school and she was dating a musician, and so that happened at the same time. And so it was cool because he played by ear, and it really impressed me.
Yeah.
He would listen to like Eric Clapton Unplugged and be like, oh, this is what he did, and I'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
So it was cool. I was aware of like learning stuff by ear and like, oh, you can do that, like, wow, that's cool. So yeah, I learned I kind of learned that way, and then my parents got me some guitar lessons, and I did that for a few months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's very, very cool. So Andy, where can we find your music?
Yeah, my album, The Jungle, is out everywhere, pretty much, like all the streaming services. So Spotify, you know, Apple Music.
Apple, all that.
Yeah, Amazon, and other ones that I don't know what they're called, Deezer and stuff like that. I don't even know.
Yeah, I think there's like Stitcher. I think there's just so many new things coming out now too but just type in Andy Seagrave Music, Seagrave, and you'll find his stuff. And he's also on Instagram. You can follow him at Andy Seagrave Music.
Yeah, my Instagram is Seagrave Sounds. And then
Seagrave Sounds, that's it.
Yeah, and then on Facebook, I'm Andy Seagrave Music. I'm also on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. You can find me, but yeah, look me up.
Cool. Well, yeah, make sure that everybody's checking out The Jungle by Andy Seagrave. And thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fun chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have you been listening to the album?
I have. I actually just downloaded it, and I do know that my nieces that live in New York City are constantly driving around in their car asking to listen to Andy's music. So
that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. The Jungle is great. Bad Bad Man is very good. I mean, I can tell that you really put, you know, your soul into the music and just the whole thing. There's a difference between, I've listened to some albums before that you can tell that, you know, maybe the person creating the album is really into the music, actually writing the notes part of it, but they might not have, you know, the vocals or the lyrics to match up with what is musically happening. But when I listen to your album, it's like the two come together and it flows and it's awesome. And it really does make you want to play through the whole album. And I really hope that people get listening to you. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been cool so far. Yeah, the songs, these have been like the most natural songs. Like I've written obviously a lot of stuff over the years, but these are the kind of ones that lasted, that as I played out at clubs and stuff around for years and asked my wife, what do you think of this? And people, these are kind of the songs that are like, okay, that doesn't suck. You know, that doesn't.
So that's what I was going to ask. So this album, it's a culmination of years of your songs that you've kind of tweaked. So it's nice. So that's even more special.
Yeah, like the oldest track on the album is Where Did He Go? It's like that just guitar and vocals kind of stripped down thing. And that's probably over like 10 or something years old. It's just been around but none of these have been released yet, you know, so.
Right.
But yeah, the songs have developed over the years, and the drummer Keith Robinson and I have a couple of bass players, Nick West and Dan Green, on the album. And all these people they've really helped shape the sound too. So
yeah. So do you guys sit down together and then tweak, you know, their input too, to be like, hey, you know, I'm playing bass in this part. I think, you know, can we try this? And then you guys kind of like forge together.
Yeah, just in rehearsals and stuff, we would do that. Somebody would have an idea. What do you think about this or that? Like at the beginning of Freedom, I do that little guitar riff. And then we hit those rock chords, da, 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 dun, dun, dun. And that was Keith's idea. He's like, let's bring that from the chorus into the intro to kind of be like, here's what's coming up. Okay, now here's the chill verse, but we're gonna rock out in a minute. So stuff like that, smart stuff like that. But we recorded the album remotely I recorded the vocals in here. I'm in the bathroom because we have a baby and
the office.
Yeah. But I recorded the vocals and the guitar and stuff in my apartment, and Keith recorded the drums at his place, and Nick recorded the bass at his place. So So a lot of the songs came together like that. 3 of the tracks we did do in a studio previously, and then we kind of polished those up and made it all sound consistent with the new tracks that were recorded in basically in quarantine.
That is so cool.
So it's really cool.
Impressive. Yeah, I mean, so many artists just have to like think outside the box right now in like how they're developing their artistry and getting it out there. And I think that's so cool that you could put together something that like I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known that you guys all recorded that remotely. But like, how cool is that? So now, you know, 5 years from now, you're gonna tell your baby that like, hey, you know, Dad spent 2020, you know, making this album remotely, and it's another story of life. And it's impressive that like people are making things happen during this really crazy time, but coming out on top is what I like to see, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's
You're welcome.
It was, you know, it sounds boring, but music is just kind of something to do, you know. I think for a lot of musicians and artists and people kind of make stuff because they're like bored or they have time or whatever. So yeah, it was kind of, hey, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, we should try this. Like, are you cool with this? Yeah, okay, let's try it. And it, you know, a lot of stuff kind of aligned for the record to come out. So I really feel kind of blessed and thankful that, you know, I had a friend do the album art, and, you know, Chris did a photo shoot for me, which helped promote the album on Instagram and social media. And Keith, he kind of like co-produced it, and he really put some nice touches on this thing. And he's a seasoned guy, so, and I'm pretty new to putting my stuff out there. So,
but it's exciting. I'm happy for you. The world needs more people willing to put the work in and just get it out there, because it can turn into a really beautiful thing. So
yeah, cool. Just once you get an opportunity to do something you love, you know, you can't help but like kind of put your all into it, because you don't know if I don't know if I'll be able to do another one again, or if, you know, whatever, but
just being able to get there and do it. And I know I'm really happy for you, and I'm excited for people to get to hear your music and your album, and just the whole band getting together and doing that is really cool. And I hope you find all the success. And are you going to be is anything open enough for you to be performing anywhere in the city?
Yeah, I don't have any performance plans. I did like a live the other day on Instagram, like an album listening party, and performed some of the tracks on my acoustic, and kind of like took requests and told the stories behind the song. So I might do more of that, more live stuff, live streaming performances.
Well, absolutely. And when you do, just shoot me a message and I'll share it on all of my stuff too, cool. Because we'll get your sound out there so more people get to hear you.
Cool.
All right. Of course. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will talk to you soon, and be sure to check out Andy Seagrave's music. He's wonderful. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you soon, Andy.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You're the brightest thing that I ever did see. Diamond